and welcome. Mathematics is a subject which is interesting and different. It is different because of its move in the linear fashion, it is logical, it's abstract, and it is axiomatic in nature. While teaching mathematics, we use various methodologies. For example, the inductive method, the deductive method, the guided discovery method, and many others. Let us go into a classroom and find out how these methodologies are used effectively in teaching of mathematics. In this classroom, the teacher is using inductive method to derive the formula for the volume of the cuboid. The characteristics of the inductive method are: it proceeds from the particular to the general, it proceeds from concrete to abstract, it takes care of the needs and interests of the children, it is a development process, it starts from observation and direct experiences and ends in developing a rule in abstract form. And most importantly, it encourages child participation. Watch out for the characteristics in this demonstration.
Good morning, class. Sit down, please.
Thank you.
So, class, we are studying about mensuration today. Mensuration of solid figures, that is cubes and cuboids. Basically cuboids. We are going to deal with finding the volume of a cuboid. There are a few things lined up here. You all recognize these shapes. This is a cone, a cylinder. Then these are cuboids with square bases, of course. The difference between this and this is a bigger square as the base, and this one has a smaller square as the base. And this, of course, is a cube. Good. Now, when we are talking of a cube, we have already dealt with the volume and surface areas of cube, and we know how to find the surface area and volume of a cube. If I have a cube of length, say 1 unit, then it is called a unit cube. What will be the volume of this cube, Anurag?
The volume of this cube will be 1 cubic unit. If the length of the cube side is 1 centimeter, then the volume will be 1 cubic centimeter. Good. If the side is 1 meter, then the volume will be 1 cubic meter.
Yes. So, a unit cube means that the volume will be 1 cubic unit. If the unit is 1 centimeter, then the volume will be 1 cubic centimeter. And if the side is 1 meter, then the volume will be 1 cubic meter. Similarly, if it is 1 decimeter, then volume will be 1 cubic decimeter. Now we are going to make use of, the volume of this cube to find the volume of a cuboid here. How do we draw a cube actually? What's the difference between a cube and a cuboid? As we have just discussed, that the difference between a cube and a cuboid is only that the cube will have all its edges equal. The length, breadth and height all will be equal, isn't it? And it will become a cube. But when we are talking of a cuboid, either it could have all the 3 sides different, that is length, breadth and height, all of them different, or maybe any 2 of them equal, but never all 3 of them equal. Because the moment they are all 3 equal, it becomes a cube again. So if we have to find the volume of this cuboid, making use of, the formula for cube's volume, let's see how we do it. Let us take this cube, which has got a side equal to 4 centimeters. But I will take this 4 centimeters as 1 unit. So this becomes a unit cube for me, isn't it? Although the side of this is 4 centimeters, but it is a unit cube because I am taking 4 centimeters as 1 unit. So we will make use of this unit cube to find the volume of this cuboid. How do we do this actually? Let us first see the measurements of this cuboid. Okay, will somebody come up here and measure the dimensions of this cuboid? Yes, Pranay? Just measure the length, breadth and the height of this cuboid.
The length of the cuboid is 24 centimeter.
Yes.
Its height is 12 centimeter.
Yes.
Its breadth is 16 centimeter.
Perfect. So here we have a cuboid which has got its length, say OC, breadth OA and height OE here. where OC is equal to 24 centimeters, OA is equal to 16 centimeters and OE equals to 12 centimeters. Let us just try to draw this cuboid here. This is how we draw the cuboid. I can name it as OA, B, C and OE is representing its height. So as we have measured just now, the AB is the length which is equal to 24 centimeters here. We measured the breadth, OA was 16 centimeters and we measured the height which was 12 centimeters. So we have a cuboid of length 24 centimeters, breadth 16 centimeters and height 12 centimeters. Let us just try to find the volume of this cuboid using this unit cube. How do we do this? I take this unit cube, the length PQ of this unit cube. I place along the length OC of this cuboid. PS, the breadth, I place along OA of this cuboid and PV along the height OE like this. Right? Now how many such cubes do you think will be required to cover the entire length OC?
Since the length of the cuboid is 24 centimeter, in all, 6 cubes will be placed along line OC.
Yes, come and place them here. Yes, one by one. So we are trying to cover up the length OC with these unit cubes. And since 4 centimeters multiplied by 6 is 24 centimeters, so we have in all 6 such unit cubes placed to cover the length OC. Now can somebody tell me that how many such lines of 6 cubes actually would be required to cover the entire area of the base, that is OABC?
Since the breadth of the cuboid is 16 centimeter of 4 units, 4 into 6, that is 24 such cubes will be needed.
Fine.
And we need 3 more lines to fit in the whole area.
Yes, since one line is already placed here, so if I place 3 more lines here, that will make it in all 24 such cubes that have to be placed in here. Come, let's place them here. Just place them in. We're putting the second line. We've already placed the first line of 6 cubes. The second line. Yes. Now we start with the third line. 3 lines of 6 cubes and finally the last line. Please, good. So here we have 6 cubes and 4 such lines. So 6 fours are 24 such unit cubes placed inside this cuboid so that we can cover up the entire base area of, OABC. Now we have to find the volume of this cuboid. Can somebody tell me how many more layers of these 24 cubes do we need to place over these to fill up this entire volume?
Since the height of the cuboid is 12 centimeters or 3 units, 3 layers of 24 cubes will be needed.
Yes, good, very nice. Because it is 12 centimeters, 4 centimeters is each unit, so 3 fours are 12. So we need to put in 3 such layers. That means 1 layer is already there. We need to put in 2 more layers and that makes it the entire volume of the cuboid. So let us just try to find out the volume of this cuboid. The volume of this cuboid will become 6 into 4 into 3 cubic units, which is equal to 24 multiplied by 3, that is 72 cubic units, isn't it? What was the volume of 1 unit cube actually? The 1 unit cube that we had taken here. 1 unit cube had a volume? 1 cubic unit was? 4 into 4, that was 64 cubic units. So the volume of this can be actually found out in cubic centimeters also, which will be equal to, so this volume of the cuboid here is equal to 72 into 64, that is equal to 4608 cubic centimeters.
Observe that the teacher is proceeding from particular to general, from concrete to abstract. Also observe, child is developing a rule from concrete to abstract and from the direct observation and experience.
Does that help us to find the formula for finding the volume of the cuboid?
The volume of the cuboid is equal to length into breadth into height, cubic units.
Yes, very good. So this gives us the formula for volume of the cuboid. The volume of cuboid is equal to 6 represents the length, 4 represents the breadth and 3 represents the height. So L into B into H cubic units. Making use of this formula, we can find the volume of any cuboid if the length, breadth and height of the cuboid are given. So making use of the unit cube, or in other words using the formula for finding the volume of a cube, we can find the volume of a cuboid.
We saw how the teacher has used inductive method to derive the formula for the volume of a cuboid. Let us peep into the other classroom. Here the teacher is using deductive method. The characteristics of the deductive method are: it proceeds from general to particular and from abstract to concrete. The child is provided with information of facts, principles and theories. It starts with a rule and provides for practice and applications. Watch out for these characteristics in this demonstration.
You already know about the angle bisector theorem of a triangle. Do you? Yes, ma'am. It states that if there is a triangle and we draw the angle bisector of any angle of this triangle, it divides the opposite side in the same ratio of the side containing the angle. Right? This is angle bisector theorem. It is also known as internal bisector theorem. So if we have a triangle ABC, I draw the angle bisector of, say, angle A. The sides containing this angle A are AB and AC. So it says that if AD is the angle bisector, it divides the opposite side in the same ratio of the sides containing the angle. That means the ratio of BD and DC is same as the ratio AB and AC. That means BD upon DC is AB upon AC. Similarly, if I draw the angle bisector of angle B, then the sides containing this angle B are AB and BC. So this BE will divide the opposite side in the ratio of the sides containing the angle. That means AE upon EC is AB upon BC. Again, if I draw the angle bisector of angle C, say CF, what is AC upon CB? AF upon FB. AC upon CB is AF upon FB. So all these three relations will be from which theorem? Angle bisector theorem, which is also known as internal bisector theorem. Now if I give you a question, I say this is a triangle DEF. DL is the angle bisector, with the additional property that this DL is bisecting the opposite side. This DL is bisecting the opposite side. What do you mean by bisecting the opposite side? It means L is the midpoint of EF, or EL is equal to LF. So if DL is the angle bisector of angle D of triangle DEF such that EL and LF are equal, can you say that triangle DEF is isosceles?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it isosceles?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you prove it?
Yes, ma'am.
Come and prove it. Now here in triangle DEF, by angle bisector theorem, DE by DF is equal to EL by EF, LF. We are also given that EL is equal to LF.
This implies that EL by LF is equal to 1.
EL is equal to LF, that means the ratio is? If both are 4, the ratio is 4 upon 4. If both are 5, the ratio is 5 upon 5. So the ratio is always 1. DE by DF is equal to EL by LF, which implies that DE by DF is also 1.
DE by DF is also 1, which implies DE is equal to DF. So the triangle is isosceles.
Is it correct? Yes. So we can prove DEF is an isosceles triangle if the additional condition that angle bisected is also bisecting the opposite side is given.
Observe that the teacher is giving another example under the deductive method.
Have you ever heard about the Pythagoras theorem, a very important theorem in mathematics?
Yes.
This was invented by Pythagoras. That is why the name Pythagoras theorem. It states that there is a triangle, a right triangle, ABC. This theorem is applicable on a right triangle. So if there is a triangle ABC, where angle B is 90. So obviously if angle B is 90, this is the biggest angle of the triangle?
Yes, ma'am.
So if this is the biggest angle of the triangle, the side opposite to it will be the biggest side of the triangle?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? This side, the biggest side, is also known as hypotenuse. The Pythagoras theorem states that the square of the hypotenuse, that means AC square, is equal to the sum of the squares of other two sides. That means AC square is AB square plus BC square. This should always be the biggest side or the hypotenuse. So AC square is AB square plus BC square. This can also be explained like if I complete a square with AC as one side. This is a square with one side as AC, so other sides will also be equal to AC because I am calling it a square. So this is X, this is Y. So AC by X is a square drawn on the side AC. Similarly, I complete a square on side AB. Let it be PN. So APNB is another square drawn on the side AB. So all the four sides of this square will be equal to AB square. And similarly, if I draw a square with BC as one side, calling it BCQM. Now actually AC square is nothing but the area of this square, AB square is nothing but the area of this square, and BC square is the area of this square. That means area of this square is equal to the sum of the areas of these two squares. This is Pythagoras theorem, right?
Yes.
Now if I have a triangle PQM with angle Q as 90 degree, this is a right angle triangle. What relation do I have with using Pythagoras theorem in this case? The only thing we need to remember is the hypotenuse should always be taken, the square of it should be equal to the square of the other two sides and taking their sum. Right? Now this can be explained by this model. Can you everyone see this?
Yes, ma'am.
This is a right triangle, this red one, right triangle. This is point B, A and C, B is right angle. Right? So ABC is a right triangle, right angle at B. AC is the hypotenuse. This is the square, this is green square that is being formed with AC, the hypotenuse, taking it as one side. This is another square with AB as one side, and this BMQC is the third square drawn on the side BC as we have done here. Right? Now, square of this should be equal to square of this plus a square of this, means area of this square should be equal to the sum of the areas of these two squares. This is what the Pythagoras theorem says. That means I should be able to replace this square, this bigger square, with these two squares. So is it possible for me to replace this square by using the other two?
Yes, ma'am.
How is it possible?
We will place the square BMQC as it is, and the pieces of square B and PA so as to cover the square AC by X completely.
That means this square has to be placed exactly as it is and the other one into pieces to cover it completely and exactly. Can you come and do it? So we have successfully placed these two squares in its place. One as it is and the other in pieces. Anyway, it has been adjusted in place of the bigger square. So this proves the theorem, Pythagoras theorem, that the square of this is equal to the square of the other two sides.
Observe that the teacher has given rules to the students and on the basis of these rules reduced the solution to the problem. That is, the teacher has moved from general to particular and from abstract to concrete. Let us move into another classroom. Here, the teacher is using demonstration method to find the solution to the problem. The characteristics of the demonstration method are: teacher derives the basic principles through demonstration. It moves from concrete to abstract and from particular to general. Watch out for these features in this demonstration.
Today we will learn how to find out the height and the distances of the objects which we cannot find out ordinarily. Let us find the height of this fan from the decks. Do we have a scale long enough to find the height of this fan? But using trigonometrical ratios, we can find the height of this fan from the decks below this. Suppose we take some distance 2 meters from your decks and measure the angle of the object from the observer's eye using an instrument called sextant. This instrument consists of a fixed protector and a moving scale. The observer's eye, in line with the scale, will look at the object and the angle will be measured on the protector like this. If A is the position of the object and B the depth, from a distance C the observer measures the angle using this instrument. Can you measure the angle? Come. Good.
Note that the teacher is demonstrating how to find the height and distance of objects where the direct measurement is difficult. The distance between the desk below the fan and the observer is 2 meters, and the angle made by the observer's eye with the fan is 60 degrees.
Now angle is 60 degrees and the distance from the desk to the observer is 2 meters. Using the formula tan 60 degrees equals to height of the fan upon distance, we can find the height of the fan. Can you calculate it out?
Yes, sir. Tan 60 is equal to root 3 is equal to height of the fan upon 2 meters. Height of the fan, so height of the fan is equal to 2 into root 3, that is 3.5 meters approximately.
Good. This way, using the trigonometrical ratios, we can find out height as well as the distances of the objects which are not easily measurable. For example, from the top of a tower, if we find out the distance of a motor car coming from a distance, then using the same instrument from the top of the tower, the observer measures the angle of the car, the angle of depression of the car, and using the height of the tower and the trigonometrical ratio tan theta, he can calculate the distance at which the car is from the foot of the tower. Thus, we can find out easily the distances and heights using the trigonometrical ratios.
So we saw how the teacher used demonstration method to help the students find the height of the fan. Thus this video provides the examples of inductive method, deductive method and demonstration method in teaching various concepts of mathematics. It will help you in applying these methods in the real life classroom situations.